You're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. This is News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next hour. India's External Affairs Minister Jaishankar calls for regional alliances based on national and regional interests to counter an uncertain multipolar world. India to host the International Conference of Agricultural Economists. Prime Minister Modi to address the 32nd edition of this conference. Tensions rise in West Asia as the assassinated Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh is laid to rest. Several countries advise their citizens to leave Lebanon. Air India halts flights to Tel Aviv. India's hockey team beats Australia for the first time since the 1972 Olympic Games in the Olympics to make an emphatic entry into the knockout stages of the Paris Games. India's External Affairs Minister called for forging more regional alliances that serve national and regional interests to deal with the uncertainties of shifting balance of power. Here's Nandita Dagar reporting.
India's Foreign Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has predicted the rise of nationalism in an increasingly unstable and multipolar world. He was speaking at the Air Commodore Jasjeet Singh Memorial Lecture organized by the Center for Air Power Studies and Forum for National Security Studies in Delhi.
It was nationalism, after all, that triggered independence, growth, rebalancing, and led to multipolarity. In many societies, as these trends matured, more authentic representation took root. They naturally would like to extend rebalancing to its cultural facets as well. Like it or not, the world will be significantly more nationalistic in the foreseeable future. And that means greater individualism, a stronger sense of caution on external commitments, and a global architecture that will be considerably less disciplined.
Dr. Jaishankar was speaking on the topic Uncertain Multipolar World, Shifting Balance of Power and Rising Nationalism. He advocated the formation of regional alliances based on national and regional interests.
Combinations of nations coming together on a specific agenda, sometimes even limited in time and space, are a growing feature of contemporary international relations. Many of them can be benign, they can even be irrelevant to the exercise of power. And India, by the way, has joined or initiated almost 40 such groupings in the last decade. But from time to time, there could be endeavors that have a larger implication for a theater or for a region in terms of stability, security, progress and prosperity.
In New Delhi, this is Nandita Dagar for DD India.
We'll be getting expert perspective on that story in the second half of News Hour, but let's continue for the moment. Madras Engineering Group of the Indian Army on August 1 completed the construction of a 190-foot-long Bailey Bridge. It has significantly improved efforts in the landslide hit Wayanad. Let's look at this report.
As the relief and rescue operations in the landslide-affected Wayanad have entered their fourth day, the Armed Forces of India remain at the forefront of the relief and rescue operations. The Madras Engineering Group of the Indian Army on 1st August completed the construction of a 190-foot-long Bailey Bridge that will help connect the worst affected areas of Mundakai and Churalmala in Wayanad district, which were hit by devastating landslide on July 30th. The construction of the crucial bridge that started at 9:30 p.m. on 31st July was completed within 24 hours by 5:30 p.m. on 1st August. Soldiers of Malabar Terriers along with National Disaster Response Force and State Civil Defence Team carried out search operations at Vellary Malad Hills to recover bodies from debris. Army sniffer dogs, excavators and JCBs put on job to identify likely locations. The Indian Navy, continuing with the rescue and relief operations, deployed advanced light helicopters of INS Garud, which undertook aerial reconnaissance of the affected areas and airlifted 12 state police personnel along with rescue equipment to the disaster-hit area, which was inaccessible by the roads. Meanwhile, the C-130J Super Hercules aircraft of the Indian Air Force landed in Calicut with specialized drones and teams which were later moved to the landslide-hit Wayanad to assist in the rescue operations. Not just the soldiers, but even the canine warriors of the Indian Army are working tirelessly alongside their human counterparts to find life under the debris in Wayanad, undeterred by mud, slush or rain. The devastating floods and landslides of Wayanad have resulted in loss of lives of over 300 people so far. And while the relief agencies are working round the clock, the Indian Armed Forces have once again emerged at the forefront, spearheading the rescue operations, saving lives in the disaster-hit areas. Akshay Dongre, DD India.
And Sunit Sukumaran, DD India correspondent, is joining us from Wayanad with more. Sunit, what's the latest on the rescue operations?
As the search and rescue operation going for the 5th day, more and more bodies are being found in different parts of the district, especially in the this landslide affected area, as well as the other parts are like around 39 kilometers. Like today, 3 dead bodies found from a very far different place, which is at Malappuram, which is around 39 kilometers far from the incident that occurred, the landslide occurred. So it's like today, more than 40 bodies recovered from this debris, and the search operation is underway. A total of 40 teams has formed to do the search operation in the debris, and they are divided into, they are deployed into 6 zones. So the search operation is still going on, and in a very systematic way. And indeed, the Bailey Bridge built by the Indian Army really helped the search and rescue operation a lot, because before this, there was a tiny stream. Like before this landslide happened, there was a tiny stream, but now it's more like a river. After this landslide happened, the entire area, which means like the Churalmala town and this Mundakai, which is separated into 2 different parts with no access. So indeed, this Bailey Bridge helped to pave the way for a smooth access. So, and it helped the rescue operations to go to the next level. So that's why from today onwards, the rescue operation is in full swing. So that's why we could recover more and more bodies from the debris and the riverbank areas.
Sunit, also, what can be expected from the government going forward? Because this is a fragile region, and this is a warning in a sense. It's prone to climate events.
We had a meeting with the, there was a meeting after the high-level meeting today. But the ministers and the government bodies, they all informed us like their primary focus is on to recover maximum bodies from the debris. That's their prime focus. And the next thing that they are planning to do is the to set up the relief camps and providing all the facilities for the people who are staying there, and to provide better facilities for them. And they are not looking for a place in the same place. In the same place where this landslide hit. So they are just planning to relocate the entire people to some other safe zones and build homes there. So that's the plan of the government.
Okay, we leave it there. Thank you very much, Sunit Sukumaran. Thank you for joining us from Wayanad. Now, the India Meteorological Department issued a red alert for extremely heavy rains in parts of Uttarakhand as heavy overnight rains triggered flooding in the Indian state of Uttarakhand. The centre has dispatched 2 Indian Air Force helicopters, a Chinook and a Mi-17, to aid rescue operations in the state. The Kedarnath Yatra has been suspended amid deteriorating weather conditions as the heavy downpour triggered landslides at many places. Monsoon rains have also caused severe destruction in Himachal Pradesh, triggering landslides and flash floods. Rescue operations resumed on August 2 to find 42 missing people. The floods have destroyed 6 bridges, 20 houses, 6 shops and claimed 4 lives, with fears that the death toll could rise as time is running out for those missing individuals. India is hosting the 32nd edition of the International Conference of Agricultural Economists. Prime Minister Modi will open the conference and address the gathering on Saturday in New Delhi. This conference will explore issues and solutions in the domain of sustainable agricultural systems. Our correspondent Shubhendu Ghosh reports.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate the 32nd International Conference of Agricultural Economists on Saturday. Theme for the conference is Transformation towards Sustainable Agri-Food Systems. It will showcase India's agricultural progress, including advancements in digital agriculture and sustainable agri-food systems.
The theme of this conference reflects that first a major change in the approach of agriculture economic research is that from individual component it will move towards system approach, which is a holistic approach.
The conference will highlight India's proactive approach to global agricultural challenges and showcase the nation's advancements in agriculture, research and policy.
This conference will go a long way in building up the network between the young researchers and the senior researchers from across the world and help us in capacity development and providing evidence-based research for sustainable agriculture development in the country.
The triennial conference, organized by the International Association of Agricultural Economists, is taking place from 2nd to 7th of August. The ICAE is being held in India after 65 years. The conference is witnessing participation of around 1,000 delegates from around 75 countries. In the face of growing climate change, natural disasters and human conflicts, the International Conference of Agricultural Economists will discuss the way forward for sustainable agri-food system. They will also focus on India's role and expertise in the domain. With camera person Shubhendu Ghosh for DD India in Delhi.
Well, India retains the 8th position in global agriculture exports in 2023. This is despite a drop in its agricultural exports as per the WTO's Trade Statistics of 2023 report. Despite a drop in agricultural exports to $51 billion from $55 billion in 2022, India has kept its position in the list of the largest agricultural exporters in the year, as 7 of the top 10 exporting countries also witnessed a decline. As per the report, among the top 10 farm exporters, only Brazil, the EU and Thailand increased their exports in 2023. The Union Cabinet, chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India, approved 8 important national high-speed road corridor projects of a length of 935 kilometers at a total cost of over 50,000 crore rupees. That should work out to about $6.25 billion to improve logistics efficiency, reduce congestion as well as enhance connectivity across the country.
आज बहुत बड़ा एक फैसला हुआ है। पूरे देश में 8 बड़े नेशनल हाईवे के प्रोजेक्ट्स जो कि एक्सेस कंट्रोल्ड एक्सप्रेसवेज हैं, आज कैबिनेट कमेटी ऑन इकोनॉमिक अफेयर्स ने प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी की अध्यक्षता में अप्रूव किए हैं। ये प्रोजेक्ट्स 935 किलोमीटर की टोटल लेंथ के हैं और इसमें 50,000 करोड़ रुपए का इन्वेस्टमेंट होगा। 50,000 करोड़ रुपीस का इसमें इन्वेस्टमेंट होगा।
The central government of India has continuously been encouraging cashless payments, and this not only has ensured transparent payments, it's also made the payments easier and secure for users. Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched the e-rupee in 2021. It is a QR code or SMS string-based e-voucher which is delivered directly to mobiles of the beneficiaries. The e-rupee application, it was developed by NPCI in collaboration with the Department of Financial Services, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and the National Health Authority. The National Payments Corporation of India partnered with 11 banks for e-rupee transactions, and the apps that accept it are Bharat Pay, Bheem Baroda Merchant Pay, Pine Labs, PNB Merchant Pay and Yono SBI Merchant Pay. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. The political crisis in Venezuela is escalating. The biggest prisoner swap between Russia and the West since the Cold War. And the military has been put on alert in Nigeria amid ongoing protests.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. With Iran vowing revenge against Israel following the assassination of the Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh and tensions between Israel and Hezbollah are rising, fears of a multi-front conflict in West Asia continue to rise. Let's look at this report.
West Asia continues to be on the edge after assassination of Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh in the Iranian capital of Tehran earlier this week. Top Qatari leaders, including Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani, attended Haniyeh's funeral ceremony. The mourners also included Khaled Meshal, who is tipped to be the new Hamas chief. Qatar is one of the main mediators in the Israel-Hamas conflict, has called Haniyeh's killing a major blow to negotiations between the two sides. Blaming Israel for assassination, Iran has vowed revenge. It also held a meeting with its regional allies from Lebanon, Iraq and Yemen. Tensions have escalated between Israel and Turkey after the latter's embassy in Tel Aviv lowered its flag to half-mast in honor of Haniyeh. Israel summoned Turkey's envoy. Amid escalating tensions in the region, the US has reiterated its commitment to Israel's security.
I'm very concerned about it. I had a very direct meeting with the Prime Minister today, and very direct. We have the basis for a ceasefire. He should move on it, and they should move on it now.
Meanwhile, tensions between Israel and Hezbollah continue to worsen. Israel struck a Hezbollah rocket launcher site in Lebanon after Hezbollah had launched rockets into Israel. As the situation shows no sign of abating, airlines have started avoiding Iranian and Lebanese airspace. Airlines including Air India and Delta have even cancelled flights to Tel Aviv. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, in light of the escalating tensions, the Indian Embassy in Tel Aviv has issued an advisory saying that it has been closely monitoring the situation. It has advised all Indian nationals in Israel to stay vigilant and adhere to safety protocols advised by the local authorities. They have also been advised to avoid unnecessary travel within the country and stay close to safety shelters. In case of an emergency, Indian nationals can contact the 24/7 Embassy helpline. Trent Murray, DD India correspondent, is now joining us live. Trent, how have foreigners been leaving Lebanon? What's being done to facilitate it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, many foreign governments, including the Indian government, as you said, advising their citizens here in Lebanon to leave immediately, saying that while the airport is still operating now is the time to make the plan to get out. The big concern, I think, for many governments here is the last time Israel and Lebanon had a war back in 2006, Beirut Airport was one of the first sites that was struck by the IDF. It was taken out of service for around 6 weeks. And so I think what those governments are saying is that if there is a repeat of that situation, they want to try and reduce the number of people that will need evacuation, potentially by boat to neighbouring Cyprus. Of course, we're not there yet. This is all preparatory work, but certainly for foreigners here, trying to get a flight is difficult because so many airlines now have cancelled their services to Beirut because of the situation. Almost all European airlines have stopped flying here. The Jordanians are not flying here. It really now is only Middle East Airlines, which is the flag carrier of Lebanon, and then a handful of others, including Turkish Airlines and Egypt Airlines. What we understand, of course, as you say, the Indian embassy here in Beirut as well, putting out a similar message to their counterparts in Tel Aviv, in fact advising Indians in the country right now to try and leave, and if they need assistance, to get in touch with Indian officials here in the capital.
Trent, also, what's the current assessment of the escalation, towards the regional war? You said you're not there as yet, we're not there as yet, but what's the current threat perception?
Well, look, I think it's fair to say that tensions right now across West Asia are running red hot. There really is concern that this region is on the brink of a major escalation, and that is because of several reasons. We have heard the rhetoric from leaders like Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah. He spoke here in Beirut last night at the funeral of his military commander who was killed in that airstrike just on Tuesday here in the capital. He said there will be a response, a very real response. We have heard some reports today from Al Arabia's newspaper, a major paper from Saudi Arabia, saying that Hezbollah has begun moving its key personnel out of the Lebanese capital, also moving military equipment out of the Lebanese capital. They clearly potentially are concerned here about further strikes coming from the IDF. On the flip side, I should just briefly mention, we are being told in Israel all government ministers have been given satellite telephones in preparation for any potential attack which could impact the mobile phone network. So those are all signals that people in this region are very genuinely concerned that a major conflict could be about to break out, which is why we know diplomats from around the world are working those telephones right now desperately, trying to bring down the temperature.
Trent Murray in Beirut, thanks very much. The biggest prisoner exchange between Russia and the West since the Cold War era took place earlier on Thursday, with 24 people released in total. Both Russian President Putin and the US President Biden went to the airports to greet the freed prisoners in their respective countries. The US President Biden hailed the deal as a feat of diplomacy and friendship.
It was a moment of relief and triumph for both sides, with prisoners freed in the biggest war between Russia and the West in post-Soviet history. Leaders from both the sides came to welcome the released prisoners at the airport after they landed on home soil. President Vladimir Putin met Russia's released prisoners at Vnukovo Airport near Moscow.
I want to address those of you who are directly involved in military service. I want to thank you for your loyalty to the oath, to your duty and your homeland, which has never forgotten you for a minute. And now you are home. All of you will be nominated for state awards.
While US President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris greeted freed Americans Gershkovich, Whelan and journalist Alsu Kurmasheva, as well as Russian-British dissident and US resident Vladimir Karamurza at Joint Base Andrews, Maryland. The US President hailed the deal as a feat of diplomacy and friendship.
The deal that made this possible was a feat of diplomacy and friendship. Multiple countries helped get this done. They joined the difficult, complex negotiations at my request, and I personally thank them all again. And I've thanked them personally, and I'll thank them again.
Later, US journalist Ivan Gershkovich, ex-US Marine Paul Whelan, and Russian-American journalist Alsu Kurmasheva arrived at a military airbase in Kellyfield, Texas on Friday. US Vice President Kamala Harris said it took complex diplomatic negotiations to bring them back. Also involved in the deal were Germany, Poland, Slovenia, Norway and Belarus. Turkey coordinated the exchange. The deal involved 24 prisoners, including 4 Americans, 5 Germans, 7 Russian citizens who were prisoners in their own country, while 8 Russian prisoners were also sent back to Moscow.
It was a very difficult decision. It is weighing up of various interests. From our point of view, the gift of freedom and the lives of the prisoners in Russia and in Belarus was important, that these 15 people have a life in freedom, a good prospect for the future, weighing up the fact that you release someone who has been sentenced for murder.
Following the deal, allies of late Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny posted selfies on X late on Thursday with some of the former prisoners held in Russia and swapped through the exchange deal. The Kremlin said Vadim Krasikov, a hitman returned by Germany in the biggest East-West prisoner swap since the Cold War, was an employee of Russia's FSB security service and had served in Alpha Group, the FSB's Special Forces unit. As the US presidential campaign enters its final months, the deal could boost Joe Biden's Democrats ahead of November's presidential election. While the exchange also represents a victory for Russian President Putin, who had indicated that he wanted Krasikov back, saying Homeland had not forgotten you for a moment. With Fuzail Ahmed, Gautam Roy, DD India.
The political crisis in Venezuela is escalating after the recent presidential election, with widespread protests continuing. On Thursday, the presidents of Brazil, Mexico and Colombia called for Venezuela to release the detailed voting tallies, increasing international pressure for transparency. In a notable move, the United States has recognized the opposition candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, as the winner. And this has drawn sharp criticism from within the Venezuelan government, which accuses the U.S. of attempting a coup. Now, in the latest development, Argentina too has recognized the Venezuelan opposition candidate as the victor. Here's the report.
The political crisis in Venezuela deepened following the recent presidential election, with widespread protests erupting over disputed results. On Thursday, leaders from Brazil, Mexico and Colombia issued a joint call for Venezuela to release detailed voting tallies to ensure transparency and address public concerns. Their appeal reflects growing international pressure on the Venezuelan government to provide clarity amid the unrest.
Esta tarde los presidentes de Colombia,
Presidents of Colombia, Brazil and Mexico, along with their foreign ministers, discussed the past presidential elections in Venezuela. The leaders got together to keep on working on options that give the international accompaniment the Venezuelan people need right now, always respecting their sovereignty, and that allows for a definitive solution for the current controversies. Colombian President Gustavo Petro also talked with the Chilean President Gabriel Boric, who agreed on what Colombia, Brazil and Mexico said in their statement. From Colombia, we'll stay attentive and ready to offer our good services in favor of political peace and democracy in the region.
We proposed first, there must be no violence. Second, the will of Venezuelans must be respected. Third, the evidence, the vote tallies need to be presented. Fourth, there should be no intervention.
In a dramatic escalation, the United States announced its recognition of opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez as the winner of the presidential election. This decision has fueled further tensions, with the Venezuelan government denouncing the US move as a blatant attempt to undermine its authority and destabilize the country. Compounding the turmoil, Vente Venezuela, a major opposition movement led by Maria Corina Machado, reported a violent attack on its Caracas headquarters. The organization claimed that overnight, 6 unidentified assailants overpowered security personnel, vandalized the premises and stole equipment. The opposition views this act as a direct assault on their efforts to challenge the disputed election results. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, the recent protests in Nigeria too have claimed 3 lives, with the police mobilized all over the country in case of any untoward incident. The military too has been put on alert to support the police if and when needed. Kano State has imposed a 24-hour curfew, while 3 other states have imposed curfews in some areas. Nigerians have been protesting against the policy reforms and the governance of President Bola Tinubu. Police in Nigeria have put personnel on red alert after a violent turn of protests in some parts of the country. In the capital, Abuja, it fired tear gas to disperse protesters on the second day of demonstrations. Ajek Mangut reports.
The northern states of Borno, Kano and Yobe declared a 24-hour curfew to prevent the escalation of violence. Incidents of violence were reported in the northern part of the country, where public infrastructure was vandalized and looted, while vehicles were set ablaze. Police fired several rounds of tear gas in many parts of the country, including the capital Abuja, to disperse protesting crowds. Protesters expressed their anger and frustration over the poor state of the economy, carrying placards with inscriptions like "End Bad Governance" and "Enough is enough" to hunger and hardship. The government had pushed for the protests to be cancelled, but Nigerians insisted on holding the demonstrations, saying reforms introduced by President Bola Tinubu have led to economic hardship. The government's removal of a subsidy in May last year has led to a sharp rise in fuel prices, which in turn has caused an increase in transportation costs, food prices and overall inflation. The protests are the first big demonstrations by Nigerians since the End SARS movement against police brutality in 2020. The rallies are expected to last for 10 days as Nigerians demand accountability, the reinstatement of petrol subsidy, among other political issues. Nigeria's government has appealed for more time to address economic challenges, adding that it does not want the protests to reverse the progress it says it has made in the last year. Ajek Mangut in Abuja, reporting for DD India.
And still to come here on DD India News Hour, we'll have a discussion on the uncertain multipolar world and what EAM Jaishankar has advised. UNICEF expresses deep concern over the death of children in recent protests in Bangladesh.
This summer, the world turns its eyes to Paris, and DD India brings you every heartbeat, every victory, and every story. Introducing our special coverage of the Paris Olympics. Experience the passion, the drama, and the triumphs. With exclusive reports, expert analysis, and up-to-the-minute updates. Join us as we bring the spirit of the Olympics to your screens.
Get ready for the ultimate sporting extravaganza on DD India.
DD India presents Champions Day Paris. Only on DD India. Every day at 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Here's a recap of our main stories. India's External Affairs Minister Jaishankar calls for regional alliances based on national and regional interests to counter an uncertain multipolar world. India to host the International Conference of Agricultural Economists, Prime Minister Narendra Modi to address this 32nd edition of the conference. Tensions rise in West Asia as assassinated Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh is laid to rest. Several countries advise their citizens to leave Lebanon. Air India halts flights to Tel Aviv. India's hockey team beats Australia for the first time since the 1972 Games in the Olympics to make an emphatic entry into the knockout stages of the Paris Olympics. Well, Professor Swaran Singh is joining us. He's a foreign affairs expert, and we'll talk to him about the uncertain multipolar world and what's to be done with it. Professor Swaran Singh, growing nationalism across the world, that's what EAM Jaishankar was talking about. How is this affecting rebalancing?
Mark, thank you. What the External Affairs Minister said is that nationalism should not be seen in the orthodox fashion as being anti-globalization or anti-internationalism. What he underlines is that in this fast-changing world, the national consciousness of most nations is going to increase. So you will notice nations becoming far more conscious of their national routines. But that does not stop them from contributing to building public goods at the global level. And therefore, they will be likewise conscious also of the regional concerns and regional challenges. But it should not be seen that nationalism should be seen as a counter or an obstacle to nations becoming much more international in that sense. So, nationalism would mean that one is more conscious of the leverages the nation has, the priorities the nation has, and what it can from there contribute to the regional or global issues in that sense. So this whole debate of the orthodox and the changing thinking on issue of nationalism was very well articulated in that Jasdeep Singh Memorial Lecture today.
Professor Singh, the EAM also suggests more caution on external commitments. How does one get the best deal then, for national interest in these circumstances?
Yes, indeed. When he mentioned that there is definitely an expanding space for middle powers to step out and contribute in, global agenda setting or taking major initiatives, he did also underline that among them, some countries would always be reluctant to take, expansive external responsibilities, partly so because their focus in the immediate future would be much more on internal issues to ensure welfare, development, and prosperity for their own citizens first. And therefore, there would be certain amount of reluctance, but that does not mean that countries, particularly these emerging middle powers, will not be willing to contribute in either influencing regional narratives, global narratives, or taking international initiatives, also depending on which sectors they see as more important to them. And therefore, there will be variations as to in what areas, what kind of emerging powers will take greater interest. But it is not to believe that middle powers are suddenly super excited to jump out and take that space and begin to participate in global affairs. There will be very visible certain amount of caution as they step out and take international responsibility.
Professor Singh, also, if we look at these alliances, how far are these groups aligned on strategic lines? Are there limitations to defense alliances? Because we are seeing wars in the world today, and no one at the end of the day is willing to fight a war for someone else.
I think that's another very interesting issue where in international relations, we are looking at the whole transition from 20th century style organizations with membership, constitution, and a headquarters to increasingly now world moving towards what we call groupings or networks. And, External Affairs Minister mentioned that in just last 10 years, India has either initiated or begin to participate in as many as 40 new multilateral forums of that nature. And therefore, that brings enormous flexibility in how the group wants to operate. In fact, there is also this whole conversation that External Affairs Minister has himself also spoken about of the drift of multilateralism to what is now plurilateralism, which is going to be extremely flexible in terms of a larger agenda agreeable to all members, but in specific sectors, different groupings from within the larger membership could become more active and dynamic. And even within that smaller group, there could be entries and exits depending on space and time and dimensions that make some actors more relevant and other actors lesser relevant. So in that sense, this whole idea of multilateralism itself is still in the making, as he said. And in that, it seems that alliances which were created in the 20th century are facing challenges of not being able to bring stability and ensure that wars come to an end. And that is the challenge where these new innovations of how multilateralism must be conceived of and built over a period of time is something that is an enormous challenge and that he underlined in his speech today.
Finally, Dr. Singh, to what extent are economic alliances or business ties providing stability to relations between nation states?
That again, Mark, External Affairs Minister did mention that military power is no longer the sole focus and the most desirable focus of how groupings or alliances or nations will go out and work. And therefore, comprehensive national strength is the focus in which technology, economic partnerships, innovations will play a major role as to how groupings and alliances will work in future. And in that sense, economic partnership or developmental partnerships of a nation would make it much more effective in terms of taking forward the kind of issues that it wants to take forward and implement in global sort of partnership that it wants to build. So definitely there is a great drift from military power to economic leverages that become much more significant, whether it is trade or aid or investments. And that also applies to how multilateralism increasingly is also focusing on economic challenges. And institutions of financial governance, for example, have been in the main focus of both seeking reform and giving alternatives. In that sense, India also has played a certain role in transforming financial, economic, global decision-making and governance structures and processes. And that was clearly underlined that there's a shift from purely military-focused international national power to now increasingly a comprehensive national strength focus in which economic component has become extremely significant in the last couple of decades.
We leave it there. Thank you very much, Professor Swaran Singh, a foreign affairs expert. Thank you for joining us and enlightening us on the changed realities and how the EAM sees forging alliances in this time. Now, moving on, in Bangladesh, thousands of protesters under the anti-discrimination student movement, they took to the streets in different parts of the country on Friday. Despite the rain, a large number of these students were on the streets as part of a mass procession which was announced by the Students Against Discrimination. Clashes were reported between the police and the protesters. The police, the Rapid Action Battalion and the Border Guard Bangladesh were deployed in various parts of the country. Now, UNICEF has expressed deep concern over the death of at least 32 children as well as many arrests and detention in the last month's violence in Bangladesh. Sanjay Vijayvesekara, who is the UNICEF Regional Director for South Asia, shared his grave concern in a press statement on Friday. He said that children must be protected and it's everyone's responsibility. India's President Draupadi Murmu inaugurated the two-day conference of the Governors 2024 at the Rashtrapati Bhavan in New Delhi on Friday. In her opening remarks at this conference, President Murmu said that the agenda for the conference included carefully chosen issues that are crucial in achieving national goals. Adding further, she said that the deliberations of this conference would be an enriching experience for the participants and help them in their functioning. Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar, Prime Minister Modi and Home Minister Amit Shah also addressed this conference. Prime Minister Modi and other leaders urged the governors to strengthen centre-state coordination and to promote social welfare. Some news from the global markets. The Nasdaq Composite Index has entered technical correction after falling more than 10% from a July 10th high. Now, the index has been hit by disappointing forecasts for Amazon and Intel, and this also comes after investors sold Wall Street's heavyweight stocks after dull results from Tesla and Alphabet. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. The Assam Chief Minister Biswa Sarma announces plans to promote Jhumur dance. India's mixed archery team finished 4th at the Paris Olympics.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Well, Indian Navy's frontline frigate INS Tabar arrived at St. Petersburg in Russia on a 4-day visit to participate in the 328th Russian Navy Day parade celebrations. The visit by INS Tabar aimed at strengthening the long-standing friendship and also to explore new avenues of bolstering the relationship between India and Russia. INS Tabar is on departure from St. Petersburg, Russia, successfully conducted maritime partnership exercises with the Russian Navy ship Surbatsinzli on the 30th of July, and the Indian Navy remains committed to fostering partnerships with navies across the world. In the northeastern state of Assam, after the success of the world's largest Bihu performance, the Assamese government is setting its sights on another record-breaking event. The Assam Chief Minister, Dr. Hemanta Biswa Sarma, announced a plan to promote Jhumur, dance amongst the people. In a cabinet meeting, he said that a mass event will be held on the 20th of November featuring around 8,000 dancers and artists. Here's a report by Momita Biswas from Guwahati.
The Tea tribe community in the northeast Indian state of Assam has a distinct cultural identity with their own language, customs and traditions. Despite their contribution to the tea industry, they have faced socio-economic challenges and have been working towards greater recognition and development. After this decision came out, the people of the Tea tribe community expressed their happiness.
As a member of the tea community, I am very happy after I got the news. After the Bihu world record, the government has focused on Jhumur, which is a traditional dance form of the tea tribe community, and for that we are thankful to the government.
We are very happy. The government has taken a very good decision. We are thankful to the government for taking such a good step for us.
This is our old age tradition and dance. After the announcement was made, we were very happy.
Government's effort to highlight this unique cultural expression underscores its commitment to celebrate and promote the diverse heritage of Assam's tea tribes. Momita Biswas's report from Guwahati for DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. Time now for the sports news. And we'll begin with news from the Paris Olympics. Well, it was heartbreak then for the Indian archers, Dheeraj Bomadevara and Ankita Bhagat. They succumbed to pressure and they lost 2-6 to the United States in the bronze medal match. Earlier, the Indian archers lost 6-2 against South Korea in the mixed team semi-final at Paris Olympics. The Indians have already made history by reaching the semi-finals for the first time, beating Spain in the quarterfinals to get there. Before the Paris Olympics 2024, no Indian archer had crossed the quarterfinal stage. Now, India defeated Australia 3-2 for the first time in 52 years in the final men's hockey Pool B match of the Paris Olympics on Friday. For India, Abhishek and Harmanpreet Singh, they scored, while Thomas Craig and Blake Govers scored for Australia. The win has helped the side finish second in Pool B. Australia have 9 points from 4 games. Earlier, the Indian hockey team suffered their first loss in this edition. They went down 1-2 to the defending champions Belgium. With 2 Olympic medals, bronze medals already in a kitty, Manu Bhaker has qualified for the 25-meter pistol final. After finishing second in the qualification round, Manu shot 294 in the precision stage of the qualifiers and followed that up with an emphatic 296 in the rapid stage. She finished with an overall total of 590 out of a possible 600. On the other hand, Isha Singh failed to make the cut. She scored 581 points and finished 18th. But the top 8 players have been chosen for the final. It's going to take place on Saturday. The International Olympic Committee said that a gender row over which athletes can compete in the Olympic sports is a minefield. But one thing is certain, rules cannot be changed midway through an event. The Italian boxer Angelina Carini pulled out of the Paris Olympics mid-fight on Thursday after she sustained a series of crunching blows from her Algerian opponent Imane Khalif, who last year failed a gender eligibility test at the World Championships. The IOC spokesperson, Mark Adams, said that there is no confusion that Khalif is a woman and should be allowed to compete.
The Algerian boxer was born female, was registered female, lived her life as a female, boxed as a female, has a female passport. This is not a transgender case. I know you're not saying that, but there has been some confusion that somehow it's a man fighting a woman. This is just not the case. Scientifically, on that there is consensus. Scientifically, this is not a man fighting a woman, and I think we need to kind of get that.
Well, after the gender row at the Olympics, the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni met the Italian boxer Angelina Carini in Paris and said that the IOC decision to allow Khalif to compete doesn't seem fair.
It is a fact that the levels of testosterone present in the Algerian athlete's blood, the race at the start does not seem fair. I think that athletes who have, let's say, male genetic characteristics should not be allowed to compete in women's competitions, and not because we want to discriminate against anyone, but to protect the right of female athletes to be able to compete on equal terms.
Ma per tutelare il diritto delle atlete.
Amphibious vehicles sailed through Amsterdam's canals on Thursday evening as part of a 5-day tour across Dutch cities. The event marks the end of this unique tradition, as from 2025 these vehicles will no longer be allowed into the city and will be banned from Amsterdam due to new environmental regulations. This year's event, hosted in the Netherlands, saw around 100 enthusiasts, a larger turnout than usual, enjoying a final ride in these iconic canal. Dutch participants expressed their regret over not being able to convert the cars to electric. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour, but let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on your screen and download it now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. My name is Mark Lynn. From all of us here in Delhi, thank you very much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.